And now, this I believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. Dr. Will Durant, the distinguished American philosopher, was born in North Adams, Massachusetts. He is now engaged in writing the monumental Story of Civilization series in 8 parts. The Renaissance, the 5th volume of this series, was published in 1953. Will Durant took time out from his busy schedule to bring us his creed.
I find in the universe so many forms of order, organization, system, law, and adjustment of means to ends that I believe in a cosmic intelligence, and I conceive God as the life, mind, order, and law of the world. I do not understand my God, and I find in nature and history many instances of apparent evil, disorder, cruelty, and aimlessness. But I realize that I see these with a very limited vision, and that they might appear quite otherwise from a cosmic point of view. How can an infinitesimal part of the universe understand the whole? We are drops of water trying to understand the sea. I believe that I am the product of a natural evolution. The logic of evolution seems to compel determinism, but I cannot overcome my direct consciousness of a limited freedom of will. I believe that if I could see any form of matter from within, as I can see myself through introspection, I should find in all forms of matter something akin to what in ourselves is mind and freedom. I define virtue as any quality that makes for survival, but as the survival of the group is more important than the survival of the average individual, the highest virtues are those that make for group survival: love, sympathy, kindliness, cooperation. If my life lived up to my ideals, I would combine the ethics of Confucius and Christ, the virtues of a developing individual with those of the member of a group. I was a socialist in my youth and sympathized with the Soviet regime until I visited Russia in 1932. What I saw there led me to deprecate the extension of that system to any other land. Experience and history have taught me the instinctive bases and economic necessity of competition and private property. I am not so fanatical a worshiper of liberty as some of my radical or conservative friends. When liberty exceeds intelligence, it begets chaos, which begets dictatorship. We had too much economic liberty in the later 19th century, due to our free land and our relative exemption from external danger. We have too much moral liberty today, due to increasing wealth and diminishing religious belief. The age of liberty is ending under the pressure of external dangers. The freedom of the part varies with the security of the whole. I do not resent the conflicts and difficulties of life. In my case, they have been far outweighed by good fortune, reasonable health, loyal friends, and a happy family life. I have met so many good people that I've almost lost my faith in the wickedness of mankind. I suspect that when I die, I shall be dead. I would look upon endless existence as a curse, as did the Flying Dutchman and the Wandering Jew. Death is life's greatest invention, perpetually replacing the worn with the new. And after 20 volumes, it will be sweet to sleep.
Those were the personal beliefs of Will Durant. And here's news. A brand new This I Believe book with 100 new beliefs now at your bookstore. Of these 100 new beliefs, 80 are from living men and women from all walks of life. 20 are the beliefs of immortals, the 20 men and women selected from all history whose beliefs would most interest and help you. The world's leading biographer of each immortal has written his belief from his own writings and sayings. Forward by Edward R. Murrow. For yourself and for a gift, get Volume 2, the new book, This I Believe. And now, This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. J.P. McAvoy is a literary virtuoso. He has written short stories, 10 Broadway productions, including 3 editions of his musical review, Americana. He has written radio serials and, incidentally, is the creator of the comic strip Dixie Dugan. Since 1942, his chief occupation is to keep traveling as the roving editor of Reader's Digest. Here now is J.P. McAvoy.
I believe in work. When God told Adam, "In the sweat of thy brow shalt thou eat thy bread," he wasn't fooling. I believe in prayer, not as a dog is taught to sit up and beg for a bone, but as a respectful effort to make contact with a superior being and a two-way communication if possible. I do not believe that prayer is dialing information for God when you're in trouble or calling operator to complain about the service. I believe with Hamlet there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our philosophy. So it doesn't bother me anymore that philosophers disagree with each other, because I reserve the right to disagree with them. I know they are smarter than I am, but I console myself with the thought that none of them has come back from the other side with the answers. I believe in democracy, when that means equal opportunities for all. But I believe just as steadfastly in the aristocracy of intelligence, taste, and character. Leaders and those who yearn to be led, burden bearers and free riders. Since there will always be more of the latter than the former, I don't believe that wisdom is a monopoly of the majority. Leaders, too, can be right. History proves it, and we shouldn't be beastly to them unless they lead us in the wrong direction. I believe in liberty, not just something precious to die for in far-off places, but something equally precious to live for at home. Many brave men have fought abroad to preserve liberty, only to come home and find it nibbled away by ducks, officious bureaucrats, bullying bosses, nosy neighbors, nagging wives, interfering in-laws. I believe we have been bewitched into believing that committees, organizations, clubs, campaigns, and drives will solve our problems. I believe if householders plant vegetables in their backyards and flowers in front, all neighborhoods will be lovely, and there will be no need for garden clubs. Likewise, parents must train and discipline their own children, and not abdicate responsibility to the schools, police, and juvenile judges. The late W.C. Fields, explaining his raffish approach to people believe in reincarnation. They think they are coming back here. But I know I'm going through here. We have been solemnly warned the sins of the fathers are visited on their children. In short, you can't get away with it. The Hindus call this karma. They believe we are doomed to keep coming back here in one form or another until we have paid all our debts in full, righted all the wrongs we've committed, made complete restitution. Call it karma, the sins of the fathers, or the last judgment, it gives one pause. I believe so long as we thrill to the words of Homer, the art of Michelangelo, the music of Beethoven, these great spirits will be immortal. So long as any of us remember the inspiration of our fathers and mothers, they too will never die, and we in turn may achieve such immortality. Finally, I believe if you have the choice, it is better to be kind than to be clever. I believe Epictetus, lead the good life and habit will make it pleasant. And I believe Virgil, happy is he who can search out the cause of things, for thereby he masters all fear and is throned above fate.
Those were the personal beliefs of J.P. McAvoy. And here's news, a brand new This I Believe book with 100 new beliefs now at your bookstore. Of these 100 new beliefs, 80 are from living men and women, 20 are immortals, chosen from all history to get the beliefs of most interest and help to you. Volume 1 of This I Believe was second in sales only to the Bible. Why? Because it interested and helped hundreds of thousands. This new book has more interest, more help. For yourself and for a gift, get Volume 2, This I Believe. And now, This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. Sir Charles Galton Darwin is a physicist. He is also a eugenicist. And in his latest work, The Next Million Years, he has warned of the perils to mankind of ignoring this science. He has been professor of natural philosophy at Edinburgh University, master at Christ College, Cambridge, and director of the National Physical Laboratory from 1938 until his retirement in 1949. While there, he was in charge of the laboratory's electronic brain. He was one of Britain's chief scientific administrators during World War II, and his is the credit for the device known as Mulberry, which was the artificial harbor for D-Day. Here now is Sir Charles Galton Darwin.
I recognize fully that the appeal of things in life will be different for different people, and I can only say what I've found the most important things in life for myself. I count as one of the most important things in the world the understanding of the world. I've spent most of my time working at the physical sciences, and I count myself fortunate in having lived through the heroic age of physics, when, what with relativity and the quantum theory, our understanding of the nature of inanimate matter has been so much revolutionized as it was 300 years ago in the days of Newton. This has been the science I've mostly studied, but I've always had a lively interest in biological subjects too, and these have much affected what I believe. Among such subjects, one is the question of human nature, and this has colored my view of what will happen to mankind in the future. I believe that a great deal of what's now being attempted for our betterment is doomed to fail, and so I don't share the particular enthusiasms of many of the would-be benefactors of humanity. It's true that there have been immense improvements in material conditions during the past century, but they're quite external, and they leave man's fundamental nature no better than it was before. So too, the intellectual triumphs of recent years don't signify that man has become any more intelligent than he was in the preceding dark ages. I see no safeguard for us against a relapse into conditions like those exemplified in the sad records of past history. The main hope of bringing about any real betterment in mankind depends on a different thing. It must be based on applying the idea of heredity, a science that's already understood in its principles, though hardly yet in many of its applications. Holding this, I believe intensely in the importance of the family as the continuing unit of human life. When the science of eugenics has been more fully developed, there may be a hope on those lines of really bettering humanity. These are the things that, for me, are consciously of chief importance. But underlying them there are others. The great philosopher Kant once said that there were two things that continually filled him with wonder: the starry heavens above him and the moral law within him. Like him, I too continually wonder at the moral law within me, which dictates my conduct, or perhaps I ought to say the ideals of conduct which I wish I could fulfill. But I'm entirely lacking in the thing which so many people seem to regard as their mainstay in life, a mystical sense of religion. This I lack, and I'm perfectly content to be without it.
Those were the personal beliefs of Sir Charles Darwin. And here's news, a brand new This I Believe book with 100 new beliefs now at your bookstore. Of these 100 new beliefs, 80 are from living men and women from all walks of life, 20 are the beliefs of immortals, the 20 men and women selected from all history whose beliefs would most interest and help you. The world's leading biographer of each immortal has written his belief from his own writings and sayings, forward by Edward R. Murrow. For yourself and for a gift, get Volume 2, the new book, This I Believe. And now, This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. Harry T. Brundidge has befriended criminals and scooped the police since he was 15, when he got his Uncle Albert's old long pants and became a reporter in Kansas City. He won a Navy citation as a war correspondent, was the combined TV network's commentator on the Kefauver hearings, and had his own television program called Brundage Crime Report. Here now are the beliefs of Harry T. Brundidge.
At one time in my life, I wrote a great deal about crime and criminals. I don't know how many criminals I came to know personally while I was a newspaper man, and how many of them I could truthfully call my friends. But the number is large. It has not always been easy to draw the line of behavior where it belonged, between friendship and the rights of society. But I did my duty on both sides of the line. I had my friends, and I helped the law. What has not been hard has been to know that there is no line between people. They are all basically alike. All have good in them. All have the potentiality of failure. I have known some criminals very well indeed. I have known, too, that I was no better than they were. I was only more fortunate. I have been able to say sincerely, there but for the grace of God go I. And because of this contact with criminals, I have been privileged to have more friends than persons usually have. And the friends I have had, some of them, have been better friends because they weren't able to make friendships with those on my side of the line. They knew I believed they had good in them. They knew I trusted them, so they trusted me. I am rich because they did. My religion has rewarded me. Anyone whose religion is people is sure to be rewarded. Probably a lot of people don't have any realization that criminals also are people, that there is good in them, and the good will express itself if given a chance. I'm not pretending that criminals can be reformed simply by kindness or trust. I'm speaking only of the attitude toward them. The men I know who are bad, and I've known some of the worst, have become bad by the play of circumstance, by obscure weaknesses in their natures, by the influence of bad associates, by drink, by one or another cause that decided their destinies. I guess that not many formal Christians get to know criminals as individuals, so they don't apply their Christianity to them personally. Sometimes it makes me bitter to see the problems of unfortunate men pushed aside. They should have help and encouragement from the persons from whom Christianity is expected. But I am happy to say that I have known some fine churchmen who always have been ready to help someone just out of prison for whom I wanted a job. I think in particular of an archbishop who never turned me down, and of certain men in the Salvation. Thanks to such friends, I never failed to find a job for a man who wanted to go straight. Not all of them kept the jobs or went straight, but some did. I still hear from some of them. I still hear from some of the others, too. I have often called on friends of mine in prison. Well, I knew them. I may have been the one for whom the scriptural comment was made. I was in prison and you visited me. I'm not chiding those who have no friends in prison. I only say that if they did, they would be richer, not poor. I am rich. I am richer than most because I have friends who value me for the reasons that have nothing to do with my standards or their standards. We are friends because we like each other as people. That is my religion, and I thank God I have been given a life that enabled me to practice it.
Those were the personal beliefs of Harry T. Brundidge. And here's news, a brand new This I Believe book with 100 new beliefs now at your bookstore. Of these 100 new beliefs, 80 are from living men and women, 20 are immortals, chosen from all history to get the beliefs of most interest and help to you. Volume 1 of This I Believe was second in sales only to the Bible. Why? Because it interested and helped hundreds of thousands. This new book has more interest, more help. For yourself and for a gift, get Volume 2, This I Believe. And now, This I Believe. The living philosophies of thoughtful men and women presented in the hope they may strengthen your beliefs so that your life may be richer, fuller, happier. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. Former President Harry S. Truman has been railroad man, bank clerk, farmer, artillery officer, storekeeper, judge, senator, and vice president. On April 12, 1945, he was thrust into the immense responsibility of guiding his country through to victory in war. For almost 8 years, he was President of the United States, leading the world in efforts to secure peace. It is my privilege to bring you the former President of the United States, Harry S. Truman.
I believe in a moral code based on the 10 Commandments found in the 20th chapter of Exodus and on the 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters of the Gospel according to St. Matthew, which is the Sermon on the Mount. I believe that a man ought to live by those precepts, and if followed, it will enable him to do right. I don't know whether I have followed these precepts or not, but I have tried. I believe that the fundamental basis for a happy life with family and friends is to treat others as you would like to be treated, speak truthfully, act honorably, and keep commitments to the letter. In public life, I have always believed that right will prevail. It has been my policy to obtain the facts, all the facts possible, then to make the decision in the public interest and to carry it out. If the facts justify the decision at the time it is made, it will always be right. A public man should not worry constantly about the verdict of history or what future generations will say about him. He must live in the present, make his decisions for the right on the facts as he sees them, and history will take care of itself. I believe a public man must know the history and the background of his state and his nation to enable him to come more nearly to a proper decision in the public interest. In my opinion, a man in public life must think always of the public welfare. He must be careful not to mix his private and personal interests with his public actions. The ethics of a public man must be unimpeachable. He must learn to reject unwise or imprudent requests from friends and associates without losing their friendship or loyalty. I believe that our Bill of Rights must be implemented in fact, that it is the duty of every government, state, local, or federal, to preserve the rights of the individual. I believe that a civil rights program, as we must practice it today, involves not so much the protection of the people against the government, but the protection of the people by the government. And for this reason, we must make the federal government a friendly, vigilant defender of the rights and equalities of all Americans, and that every man should be free to live his life as he wishes. He should be limited only by his responsibility to his fellow man. I believe that we should remove the last barriers which stand between millions of our people and their birthright. There can be no justifiable reason for discrimination because of ancestry, or religion, or race, or color. I believe that to inspire the people of the world whose freedom is in jeopardy, and to restore hope to those who have already lost their civil liberties, we must correct the remaining imperfections in our own democracy. We know the way. We only need the will.
Those were the personal beliefs of Harry S. Truman. And here's news, a brand new This I Believe book with 100 new beliefs now at your bookstore. Of these 100 new beliefs, 80 are from living men and women from all walks of life, 20 are the beliefs of immortals, the 20 men and women selected from all history whose beliefs would most interest and help you. The world's leading biographer of each immortal has written his belief from his own writings and sayings, forward by Edward R. Murrow. For yourself and for a gift, get Volume 2, the new book, This I Believe. And now, This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. Ralph Johnson Bunche is director of the Trusteeship Division of the United Nations. He won worldwide acclaim for his negotiation of peace in Palestine when, after the assassination of Count Bernadotte, the situation looked hopeless. Now, Dr. Ralph Bunche states his personal beliefs.
I feel more than a little self-conscious about trying to elucidate my personal private creed. For after all, when a person strips down all the way to his innermost beliefs and in public, he stands awfully exposed. Nevertheless, it strikes me as a very useful experience to sit down with oneself and seriously think through one's beliefs and convictions. I recommend it to everyone, without any necessity, however, of crying one's findings aloud from the housetops. The trail of my beliefs and their development leads back to my childhood. I was reared in a deeply religious family. It was a sort of matriarchal clan, ruled over by my maternal grandmother, Nana, a name, incidentally, in trying clumsily to say grandma. Nana, a strong and devout personality, beloved and respected by all who knew her, guided the family by simple but firm beliefs. Foremost, she believed in God. In worldly matters, she believed that every person, without regard to race or religion, has a virtually sacred right to dignity and respect, that all men are brothers and are entitled to be treated as equals and to enjoy equality of opportunity, that principle, integrity, and self-respect are never to be worn as loose garments. For each of us in that family, these beliefs, almost automatically, came to be part of our very being. For me, this was particularly so, since Nana became both mother and father to me when in my early youth I lost both parents. In my youth, I had what many would consider a poor and hard life. But as I recall it, I was never unhappy. Rather, I enjoyed my youth immensely, for I had been taught how to appreciate and get the most out of very little, and that happiness in any circumstance is primarily a matter of control over one's state of mind. I find that most everything in which I now believe stems from the simple lessons I learned at the knee of Nana. The beliefs I acquired quite unconsciously and unthinkingly in those early years, the lessons on how to approach life and its many problems, have been my unfailing guideposts. Like Nana, I have an implicit belief in a supreme being and a supreme will beyond the ken of mortal man. In this I find both comfort and security. I hold that it is right to believe in oneself, but it is wrong ever to take oneself too seriously. For a keen sense of personal values and that humility which accompanies a balanced perspective are indispensable to congenial adjustment to life in society. In this regard, I love to visit the Grand Canyon and to stand on its rim, not only to marvel at its majestic splendor, but to reflect on how puny indeed is man, individually and collectively, when confronted with nature's awesome grandeur. I believe in the worth and dignity of the individual, and that no man can be happy within himself if he ever surrenders his dignity and self-respect. In collectively, there is granted that there will be individual mavericks on every human range. I believe that men can learn to live together in harmony and peace, in the international community as in domestic communities, and I am unfalteringly devoted, therefore, to the historic effort of the United Nations toward this end. I believe also in looking always on the brighter side of things, in the ability of right somehow ultimately to prevail, in never pressing time or fate, in taking life philosophically and in stride, both the good and the bad, and I've had an ample measure of both. These are some, at least, of my beliefs. They are for me imperative beacons, without which life would be utterly lacking in direction or meaning.
Those were the personal beliefs of Ralph Bunche. They were chosen from the beliefs broadcast in the past 2 years for inclusion in the new This I Believe book, now at your bookstore. And now, This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I Believe. Uta Hagen is one of the leading actresses of the American theater. She has made personal triumphs in such plays as Shaw's St. Joan and Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire. Her role in Clifford Odets' The Country Girl brought her every theatrical honor available, including the Antoinette Perry Award. Here is the creed of Uta Hagen.
I know that in an accidental sort of way, struggling through the unreal part of life, I haven't always been able to live up to my ideal. But in my own real world, I've never done anything wrong, never denied my faith, never been untrue to myself. I've been threatened and blackmailed and insulted and starved. But I've played the game. I've fought the good fight. And now it's all over, there's an indescribable peace. I believe in Michelangelo, Velasquez, and Rembrandt, in the might of design, the mystery of color, the redemption of all things by beauty everlasting, and the message of art that has made these hands blessed. Amen, amen. These words were given to the dying painter Louis Dubedat in George Bernard Shaw's The Doctor's Dilemma. It is the credo of an artist, a specific human being, and only a part of the author's credo whose beliefs are summed up in the entirety of his work. Not being a writer, a prophet, or a philosopher, but an actress, I must again employ the help of a playwright to paraphrase my faith. I believe in the ancient Greeks who initiated our theater 2,500 years ago, in the miracle of Eleonora Duse' gifts, in the might of truth, the mystery of emotions, the redemption of all things by imagination everlasting, and the message of art that should make the untiring work and striving the inspiration and creation of all actors blessed. Amen, amen. In the other part of my life, I feel guilty about living up to my ideal, but not so much as poor Louis Dubedat, and of course not for the same reasons. I have in my life to guide me the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and above all the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in them to the letter, to the dismay of some. I too can get strength from Michelangelo and Rembrandt, and Bach and Mozart, and Shaw and Shakespeare and Plato and Aristotle. These great makers and shakers have helped me, do help me to find reason, majesty, and greatness in this world. They have helped me to drown out the frenetic racket made by the compromisers who try to bend ideals to fit their practical needs and personal appetites and to deprive us of our spiritual salvation. The knowledge that every day there is something more to learn, something higher to reach for, something new to make for others, makes each day infinitely precious, and I am grateful. One thing makes for another. Shaw wouldn't be without Shakespeare, Bach without the words of Christ, Beethoven without Mozart, and we would be barren without all of them. I was proud the day I first learned to make a good loaf of bread, to have learned a simple thing which others could enjoy, or to plant a bulb in the ground and tend it and help it grow, or to give birth to a child and help her reach her own individual freedom, or to make a character in a play come off the printed page and become a human being with a point of view who can help others to understand a little more. All these things, and the effort to do them well, make it possible for me, while struggling through the unreal part of life, and being threatened, blackmailed, insulted, and starved, to be true to myself and to fight the good fight.
Those were the personal beliefs of Uta Hagen. They were chosen from the beliefs broadcast in the past 2 years for inclusion in the new This I Believe book, now at your bookstore. And now, This I Believe, a series of living philosophies presented in the hope they may help to strengthen and enrich your life. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I Believe. Roy Harris is one of America's leading composers. He was born in a log cabin in Oklahoma, brought up on a California farm, and first drove a truck to earn a living. After some years of study, he taught while he composed, and is now composer in residence at the Pennsylvania College for Women in Pittsburgh. He has written in various musical forms, and throughout there is a rough-hewn directness and flavor of his native land. Here now are the personal beliefs of Roy Harris.
I believe that a divine intelligence conceived the universe and universal law which governs it, and that universal law is too vast and intricate to be understood by human mentality, which is itself such a small and ever-changing part of the universe. I count on the infallibility of universal law as it governs my own life, on the law of gravity which holds me and my fellow men on this revolving planet, on the consistent nature of matter and energy, on the miracle of life and regeneration. I count on universal law which determines the rhythm of my own heartbeat and breathing, the delicate strength of my senses. I believe that man's struggle to understand and use universal law is clear evidence of kinship to divine intelligence. I believe that divine intelligence conceived matter and energy as integral parts of precise patterns of universal order for ultimate purpose. And therefore, man's discovery of the chemical, physical nature of matter and energy is only the smallest and most discernible fraction of the total comprehension of matter and energy. I believe that man is making the same error of fractional discovery about himself as part of the universe, and is therefore slow to comprehend the limitations of his own rational processes and the danger to himself of his own incomplete comprehension and short-range outlook. I am convinced that power, separated from its universal purpose, is evil. I fear that man, in ignorance and blind egotism, could succumb to the lure of releasing power over which he has no control. That man's only hope of fulfilling his destiny is receptivity to universal intelligence, wherein man's intuitive faculties can be awakened, strengthened, and guided toward a larger and clearer understanding of universal law. For this reason, I believe that the lover, the parent, the friend, is sometimes able to gain a clearer vision of universal order through creative intuition than is the scientist within the scope of the empirical method. Certainly, my experience as a composer has taught me that an objective use of acquired technical skill without the subjective impulse of intuition yields neither the drive nor depth of creativity. It seems to me that intuition may be as old in evolution in the scheme of universal law, but that individual rationality can only be as wise as the perceptions of the individual in life experience. I believe, then, that an inescapable consequence of man's struggle to understand and use universal law must be an eager willingness to be used by it as an instrument for it. That understanding of universal law can only lead to scrupulous fidelity and personal responsibility to divine intelligence of which the universe was mankind, so headstrong, so impotent, so eager, so faltering, so promising.
Those were the personal beliefs of Roy Harris. They were chosen from the beliefs broadcast in the past 2 years for inclusion in the new This I Believe book, now at your bookstore. This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
Jake Zeitlin he is a publisher, articles on the history of science. Course entitled More Whispers and Chants. Jake Zeitlin.
What ought a matter of high-flown, an operational problem to live with my family? I believe the reason, and I have the wish which precedes they'll govern other men. I join Jefferson in the belief and lives of men is evil, and I try to avoid imposing my will or philosophy on others. I believe in discipline, but only the fruitful discipline that is self-imposed. Some poets and philosophers have argued that man and his planet are doomed. I do not accept this as a condition of how I should live. If I were sure the world would end in 10 days from Friday, I would start to build a house or write a poem. I believe that I must accept my share of responsibility for what happens to me, including my accidents and mistakes. I believe in human dignity, and that dignity is worth keeping for myself so much that I will not impose indignities on others. Fear is my direst enemy, and next to fear, pride, which is the other face of vanity and the twin of folly. I remember the old man of my boyhood in Texas who said once, "Boys, they can kill us, but they can't eat us." I do not believe in returning the insults of others in kind. They cannot demean me, but I can demean myself. Therefore, I will not be governed by those who would deprive me of my dignity by threats, insults, or flattery. I believe that a good laugh does more good than a long face. Laughter is something I've had to learn from my good Dutch wife, whose ancestors have lived happily under gray skies for many years. It is easier for me to forgive a gay rogue than a serious fool. My occupation as a bookseller is an expression of my beliefs. My days and nights are spent with books and bookish people. Whatever brings knowledge to men, whatever raises their minds and emotions, whatever preserves the products of their imagination and their history, has value to me. The written and printed word survives persecution, book burning, censorship, and fashions. When I sell a man a good book, I am the happy transmitter of a precious thing, and I feel I have justly earned my profit. I believe in the scientific attitude above the unscientific, but I am not of the faith that science will save us. Science can free men from the physical hardships of nature, dignity of all humanity, misery of man. I believe that my wife, my children, and my fellow workers are my truest judges. I cannot gain credit from them for what I am not. What I believe will have to stand the test of day-by-day living. They will know, and I hope, tell me truthfully.
Those were the personal beliefs of Jake Zeitlin. They were chosen from the beliefs broadcast in the past 2 years for inclusion in the new This I Believe book, now at your bookstore. And now, This I Believe. a series of living philosophies presented in the hope they may life. Here is
I believe. Dr. Howard A. Rusk, a specialist in the field of physical medicine and rehabilitation, is one of this country's greatest physicians. He is a professor and department chairman at the New York University College of Medicine and serves as consultant to the Veterans Administration and the United Nations. This is Dr. Rusk's creed.
I can't remember when I didn't want to be a doctor. Even as an adolescent, when I scrubbed floors and ran errands at the local hospital in order to smell ether and go on rounds with the country doctor, surgery did not spell the glamour in medicine to me. It was people, sick people, their suffering, their problems, and their victories that challenged. It has been a rare privilege to be a doctor in medicine's golden era. Far more scientific advances have been made in the last 3 decades than in all time heretofore. Man's lifespan has increased from 18 2,000 years ago to 68 in America. I found it impossible to ignore the great medical advances have posed new problems. In the past would have died, now survive. They want to grow and work and love and be loved. I have heard old people to whom we have added these years ask, for what? The shelf to wait for death, or an opportunity to live and work in dignity as long as we are able? Millions of veterans throughout the world who have scarred their minds and given parts of their bodies to war have more than earned their right to live and love and work, and to know that their sacrifice has at least been one small stone that is being used to build a better world. Sick people throughout the world ask their God, why must I suffer? Possibly the answer comes in the work of the potter. Great ceramics are not made by putting clay in the sun. They come only from the white heat of the kiln. In the firing process, some pieces are broken, but those that survive the heat are transformed from clay into objects of art. And so it is, it seems to me, with sick, suffering, and crippled people. Those who, through medical skill, opportunity, work, and courage, survive their illness or overcome their handicap and take their places back in the world have a depth of spirit that you and I can hardly measure. They haven't wasted their pain. Because of this experience, they have a desire to share that is, it matters not whether they be a physician from India, a Zionist from Israel, a Greek veteran, or a Pole disabled in a mining accident, understanding they have gained through suffering or by helping those who have suffered. I believe that this basic and inherent desire of man to do something for his less fortunate fellow transcends religious dogmas, political beliefs, and geographical barriers. If we could only use this universal language, we would have a tool to unravel the babel of tongues, and an instrument which would penetrate any iron curtain or closed boundary. It does not seem strange to me that the sick should turn to those who have suffered for their greatest comfort. And so in a sick world, it is not strange that we turn to those who have been ravaged by suffering and disease for a common language. If we could start to work here, together, in a program where all of us have the same goals, it is more than possible that with God's help, we would find the solution for living together in peace. This I believe.
Those were the personal beliefs of Dr. Howard Rusk. They were chosen from the beliefs broadcast in the past 2 years for inclusion in the new This I Believe book, now at your bookstore. And now, This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. Chester Bowles gave up a successful advertising business to be a public servant, a political figure, and a diplomat. He became head of the OPA and then economic stabilizer. In 1948, he was elected governor of Connecticut, and 3 years later, President Truman appointed him ambassador to India. Here now are the personal beliefs of Chester Bowles.
There are thoughtful men who believe that the weapons of mass destruction seal the doom of the civilization which we have so painfully evolved through the centuries. They believe that in the face of new laboratory-created forces, man now stands lonely and inconsequential, hypnotized by the march of events and powerless to affect them. This may be so, but I do not believe it. Indeed, it seems to me more likely that the very vastness of the challenge will create in us a response which will cut through the confusion and frustrations of our time and guide us towards a freer, richer future. Such a future will not come easily for all of our wishing. It will not come at all unless there are enough men and women, rich and poor, black, yellow, and white, Christian, Jew, Muslim, Hindu, and Buddhist, who are prepared to dedicate their lives to its creation. I believe that our proper response to the hydrogen bombs is to do what we should do without them. These awful weapons only sharpen the old moral problems which have tested man since Cain and Abel. If we are true to the best within us, we will not rush to save ourselves at the price of surrender to totalitarianism abroad or conformity at home. Instead, in this valley of deepening shadow, each of us will seek so to live his life that he will deserve to be saved. The commandments instruct us to do unto others as we would be done by, to love our neighbors as ourselves. Is it so hard to know what this means for our time? The Bible tells us of a rich young man who asked Jesus, "What must I do?" But when he heard the answer, he went away sorrowfully, for he had great possessions. Is America not like the rich young man? As long as 2/3 of the world is ill-clad, ill-housed, and ill-fed, we have no right to relax in comfort, while communism enlists the energies of the hopeless and disinherited of the earth. As long as people live in fear, I must work with my fellow Americans to create a climate where faith can combat it. As long as cynical men tell me that freedom can be saved by borrowing the immoral methods of those who would destroy freedom, I must oppose them and persuade others to do so. I believe that the survival of freedom depends not on blind fate, diplomatic trickery, or brute military strength, but upon the most fundamental of these is the certainty that each individual life is a sacred, vital part of the universal whole, and that there is no force superior to the human spirit. I have seen ample evidence of this in our own day, when the millions of India, under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, achieved their freedom without violence or bitterness. The growth of our own America has come not from the professional realists who never weary of telling us of the things that cannot be done, but from men and women who know the power of great ideals, supported by dedicated individual effort. I believe that the democratic truths, which our Declaration of Independence once held to be self-evident, remain just as evident today. Consistent with our heritage, I believe that each of us in his daily life has a responsibility to reinforce these truths and to help extend them to all people everywhere.
Those were the personal beliefs of Chester Bowles. His is one of the outstanding statements which appear in the new This I Believe book, now at your bookstore. And now, This I Believe. Here is Edward R. Murrow.
This I believe. Walter White, Secretary of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is a novelist, sociologist, educator, as well as a leading fighter for racial equality. His service in this cause covers a span of over 35 years and has brought him both high praise and vilification. Here is the creed behind Walter.
The more I have thought become that it is what I have been taught to believe. I've been blessed with great teachers. The first and greatest of them were my mother and father. As Negroes of quite modest means in an often hostile environment in Georgia, they were buffeted from both sides because their skins were of such color they could have lived on either side of the racial fence. Through thrift and hard work, they had provided for us children a modest but immaculate and attractive home. But neither envy nor hostility of poor whites or poor Negroes ever caused them to deviate one fragment of an inch from the stern code of ethical behavior they had established for themselves and their children. The second body of teachers were the idealistic, courageous men and women who would give jobs in the North, missionary schools like Atlanta, which my 5 sisters, my brother, and I graduated. Theirs, too, was a stern moral code. Both my parents and they were devoted to the principle that compromise is not only evil, but in the long run does not pay. I am totally and irrevocably convinced that in personal behavior, political life, and other areas of human activities, the seeds of decay begin to sprout the minute a man or a nation begins to consider surrender of moral principle to attain a given end, however moral and desirable that goal may be. Naturally, I've been assailed countless times for being an all-or-nothing person. I'm proud to plead guilty to that charge. A second article of faith to which I cling is that love of one's fellow human beings can conquer whatever obstacles he faces. In traveling more than 2 million miles in all parts of the world during the past 30 years, I have seen again and again what misery and degradation of the human spirit hate has brought to mankind. Its corrosive effect on the human mind and spirit, which has found expression in war, religious bigotry, and racial schisms, has been so appalling as to convince me that the codes of behavior given us by men like Jesus and Gandhi offer the only hope of our survival. Therefore, I believe that no human being should ever be judged on the basis of race, creed, sex, religion, economic status, or place of birth. To measure any man, or to accept or reject him as friend by any other standard than his individual worth, is to deny oneself the vast benefits which come from knowing fellow human beings as fellow human beings. My own life has been immeasurably enriched by knowing people all over the world. Finally, I believe it is imperative that we recapture that passion for human equality inspired the early Christians to create a world of ethical behavior to replace barbarism.
Those were the personal beliefs of Walter White. They were chosen from the beliefs broadcast in the past 2 years for inclusion in the new This I Believe book, now at your bookstore.